Section 24 of the Art of Cookery made plain and easy by Hannah Glasse. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 9, Part 6, For Lent or a Fast Dinner. From An Amulet of Beans. Blanch your beans and fry them in sweet butter with a little parsley. Pour out the butter and pour in some cream. Let it simmer, shaking your pan. Season with pepper, salt and nutmeg. Thicken with 3 or 4 yolks of eggs. Have ready a pint of cream, thickened with the yolks of 4 eggs. Season with a little salt. Pour it in your dish and lay your beans on the amulet, and serve it up hot. The same way you may dress mushrooms, truffles, green peas, asparagus, and artichoke bottoms, spinach, sorrel, etc., all being first cut into small pieces or shred fine. To make a bean tansy. Take 2 quarts of beans, blanch and beat them very fine in a mortar. Season with pepper, salt and mace. Then put in the yolks of 6 eggs and 1/4 pound of butter, a pint of cream, 1/2 pint of sack, and sweeten to your palate. Soak 4 Naples biscuits in 1/2 pint of milk. Mix them with the other ingredients, 1/2 pint of the juice of spinach, with 2 or 3 sprigs of tansy beat with it. Butter a pan and bake it, then turn it on a dish and stick citron and orange peel candied, cut small and stuck about. Garnish with Seville orange. To make a water tansy. Take 12 eggs, beat them very well, 1/2 manchet grated and sifted through a colander, or 1/2 penny roll, 1/2 pint of fair water. Colour it with the juice of spinach and 1 small sprig of tansy beat together. Season it with sugar to your palate, a little salt, a small nutmeg grated, 2 or 3 spoonfuls of rosewater. Put it into a skillet, stir it all one way, and let it thicken like a hasty pudding. Then bake it. Or you may butter a stew pan and put it into. Butter a dish and lay over it. When one side is enough, turn it with the dish and slip the other side into the pan. When that is done, set it into a masserine, throw sugar all over, and garnish with orange. Peas Francois. Take 1 quart of shelled peas, cut a large Spanish onion or 2 middling ones small, and 2 cabbage or Silesia lettuces cut small. Put them into a saucepan with 1/2 pint of water. Season them with a little salt, a little beaten pepper, and a little beaten mace and nutmeg. Cover them close and let them stew 1/4 hour. Then put in 1/4 pound of fresh butter rolled in a little flour, a spoonful of ketchup, a little piece of burnt butter as big as a nutmeg. Cover them close and let it simmer softly an hour, often shaking the pan. When it is enough, serve it up for a side dish. For an alteration, you may stew the ingredients as above. Then take a small cabbage lettuce and half boil it. Then drain it, cut the stalks flat at the bottom so that it will stand firm in the dish, and with a knife very carefully cut out the middle, leaving the outside leaves whole. Put what you cut out into a saucepan, chop it, and put a piece of butter, a little pepper, salt and nutmeg, the yolk of a hard egg chopped, a few crumbs of bread, mix all together, and when it is hot, fill your cabbage. Put some butter into a stew pan, tie your cabbage, and fry it till you think it is enough. Then take it up, untie it, and first pour the ingredients of peas into your dish. Set the forced cabbage in the middle, and have ready 4 artichoke bottoms fried and cut in 2, and laid round the dish. This will do for a top dish. Green peas with cream. Take 1 quart of fine green peas, Put them into a stew pan with a piece of butter as big as an egg, rolled in a little flour. Season them with a little salt and nutmeg, a bit of sugar as big as a nutmeg, a little bundle of sweet herbs, some parsley chopped fine, a quarter of a pint of boiling water. Cover them close and let them stew very softly half an hour. Then pour in a quarter of a pint of good cream. Give it one boil and serve it up for a side plate. A farce meagre cabbage. Take a white hard cabbage, as big as the bottom of a plate. Let it boil 5 minutes in water, then drain it. Cut the stalk flat to stand in the dish, then carefully open the leaves and take out the inside, leaving the outside leaves whole. Chop what you take out very fine. Take the flesh of 2 or 3 flounders or plaice, clean from the bone. Chop it with the cabbage, the yolks and whites of 4 hard eggs, a handful of pickled parsley, beat all together in a mortar, with a quarter of a pound of melted butter. Mix it up with the yolk of an egg and a few crumbs of bread. Fill the cabbage and tie it together. Put it into a deep stew pan or saucepan. Put to it half a pint of water, a quarter of a pound of butter rolled in a little flour, the yolks of 4 hard eggs, an onion stuck with 6 cloves, whole pepper and mace tied in a muslin rag, half an ounce of truffles and morels, a spoonful of ketchup, a few pickled mushrooms. Cover it close and let it simmer an hour. If you find it is not enough, you must stew it longer. When it is done, lay it in your dish, untie it, and pour the sauce over it. To farce cucumbers. Take 6 large cucumbers, cut a piece off the top and scoop out all the pulp. Take a large white cabbage boiled tender. Take only the heart, chop it fine, cut a large onion fine, shred some parsley and pickled mushrooms small, 2 hard eggs chopped very fine, season it with pepper, salt and nutmeg. Stuff your cucumbers full and put on the pieces. Tie them with a pack thread and fry them in butter of a light brown. Have the following sauce ready. Take a quarter of a pint of red wine, a quarter of a pint of boiling water, a small onion chopped fine, a little pepper and salt, a piece of butter as big as a walnut rolled in flour. When the cucumbers are enough, lay them in your dish, pour the fat out of the pan, and pour in this sauce. Let it boil and have ready the yolks of 2 eggs beat fine, mixed with 2 or 3 spoonfuls of the sauce. Then turn them into the pan, let them boil, keeping it stirring all the time. Untie the strings and pour the sauce over. Serve it up for a side dish. Garnish with the tops. To stew cucumbers. Take 6 large cucumbers, slice them. Take 6 large onions, peel and cut them in thin slices. Fry them both brown, then drain them and pour out the fat. Put them into the pan again with 3 spoonfuls of hot water, a quarter of a pound of butter rolled in flour, and a teaspoonful of mustard. Season with pepper and salt, and let them stew a quarter of an hour softly, shaking the pan often. When they are enough, dish them up. Fried celery. Take 6 or 8 heads of celery, cut off the green tops and take off the outside stalks, wash them clean and pare the roots clean. Then have ready half a pint of white wine, the yolks of 3 eggs beat fine and a little salt and nutmeg. Mix all well together with flour into a batter. Dip every head into the batter and fry them in butter. When enough, lay them in your dish and pour melted butter over them. Celery with cream. Wash and clean 6 or 8 heads of celery, cut them about 3 inches long, boil them tender, pour away all the water, and take the yolks of 4 eggs beat fine, half a pint of cream, a little salt and nutmeg, pour it over, keeping the pan shaking all the while. When it begins to be thick, dish it up. Cauliflowers fried. Take 2 fine cauliflowers, boil them in milk and water, then leave one whole and pull the other to pieces. Take half a pound of butter with 2 spoonfuls of water, a little dust of flour, and melt the butter in a stew pan. Then put in the whole cauliflower cut in 2, and the other pulled to pieces, and fry it till it is of a very light brown. Season it with pepper and salt. When it is enough, lay the 2 halves in the middle, and pour the rest all over. To make an oatmeal pudding. Take a pint of fine oatmeal, boil it in 3 pints of new milk, stirring it till it is as thick as a hasty pudding. Take it off and stir in half a pound of fresh butter, a little beaten mace and nutmeg, and a gill of sack. Then beat up 8 eggs, half the whites, stir all well together, lay puff paste all over the dish, pour in the pudding and bake it half an hour, or you may boil it with a few currants. To make a potato pudding. Take a quart of potatoes, boil them soft, peel them and mash them with the back of a spoon and rub them through a sieve to have them fine and smooth. Take half a pound of fresh butter melted, half a pound of fine sugar, beat them well together till they are very smooth. Beat 6 eggs, whites and all, stir them in, and a glass of sack or brandy. You may add half a pound of currants, boil it half an hour, melt butter with a glass of white wine. Sweeten with sugar and pour over it. You may bake it in a dish with puff paste all round, the dish at the bottom. To make a second potato pudding. Boil 2 pounds of potatoes and beat them in a mortar fine. Beat in half a pound of melted butter, boil it half an hour, pour melted butter over it with a glass of white wine or the juice of a Seville orange, and throw sugar all over the pudding and dish. To make a third sort of potato pudding. Take 2 pounds of white potatoes, boil them soft, peel and beat them in a mortar, or strain them through a sieve till they are quite fine. Then mix in half a pound of fresh butter melted, then beat up the yolks of 8 eggs and 3 whites. Stir them in, add half a pound of white sugar finely pounded, half a pint of sack. Stir it well together, grate in half a large nutmeg, and stir in half a pint of cream. Make a puff paste and lay all over your dish and round the edges. Pour in the pudding and bake it of a fine light brown. For change, put in half a pound of currants, or you may strew over the top half an ounce of citron and orange peel cut thin before you put it into the oven. To make an orange pudding. Take the yolks of 16 eggs, beat them well with half a pound of melted butter. Grate in the rind of 2 fine Seville oranges. Beat in half a pound of fine sugar, 2 spoonfuls of orange flower water, 2 of rose water, a gill of sack, half a pint of cream, 2 Naples biscuits, or the crumb of a halfpenny roll soaked in the cream, and mix all well together. Make a thin puff paste and lay all over the dish and round the rim. Pour in the pudding and bake it. It will take about as long baking as a custard. To make a second sort of orange pudding. You must take 16 yolks of eggs, beat them fine, mix them with half a pound of fresh butter melted and half a pound of white sugar, half a pint of cream, a little rose water and a little nutmeg. Cut the peel of a fine large Seville orange so thin as none of the white appears. Beat it fine in a mortar till it is like a paste, and by degrees mix in the above ingredients all together. Then lay a puff paste all over the dish, pour in the ingredients and bake it. To make a third orange pudding. Take 2 large Seville oranges and grate off the rind as far as they are yellow. Then put your oranges in fair water and let them boil till they are tender. Shift the water 3 or 4 times to take out the bitterness. When they are tender, cut them open and take away the seeds and strings, and beat the other part in a mortar, with ½ pound of sugar till it is a paste. Then put to it the yolks of 6 eggs, 3 or 4 spoonfuls of thick cream, half a Naples biscuit grated. Mix these together and melt a pound of fresh butter very thick, and stir it well in. When it is cold, put a little thin puff paste about the bottom and rim of your dish. Pour in the ingredients and bake it about 3/4 of an hour. To make a 4th orange pudding. Take the outside rind of 3 Seville oranges, boil them in several waters till they are tender, then pound them in a mortar with 3/4 pound of sugar. Then blanch ½ pound of sweet almonds, beat them very fine with rose water to keep them from oiling. Then beat 16 eggs, but 6 whites, a pound of fresh butter, and beat all these together till it is light and hollow. Then lay a thin puff paste all over a dish, and put in the ingredients. Bake it with your tarts. To make a lemon pudding. Take 3 lemons and cut the rind off very thin. Boil them in 3 separate waters till very tender, then pound them very fine in a mortar. Have ready 1/4 pound of Naples biscuit, boiled up in a quart of milk or cream. Mix them and the lemon rind with it. Beat up 12 yolks and 6 whites of eggs very fine. Melt 1/4 pound of fresh butter, ½ pound of fine sugar, a little orange flower water. Mix all well together, put it over the stove, and keep it stirring till it is thick. Squeeze the juice of ½ a lemon in. Put puff paste round the rim of your dish, put the pudding stuff in, cut some candied sweetmeats and put over. Bake it 3/4 of an hour, and send it up hot. Another way to make a lemon pudding. Take 3 lemons and grate the rinds off. Beat up 12 yolks and 6 whites of eggs. Put in ½ a pint of cream, ½ pound of fine sugar, a little orange flower water, 1/4 pound of butter melted. Mix all well together, squeeze in the juice of 2 lemons. Put it over the stove and keep stirring it till it is thick. Put a puff paste round the rim of the dish, put in your pudding stuff with some candied sweetmeats cut small over it, and bake it 3/4 of an hour. To make an almond pudding. Blanch ½ a pound of sweet almonds and 4 bitter ones in warm water. Take them and pound them in a marble mortar with 2 spoonfuls of orange flower water and 2 of rose water, a gill of sack. Mix in 4 grated Naples biscuits, 3/4 pound of melted butter. Beat 8 eggs and mix them with a quart of cream boiled. Grate in ½ a nutmeg and 1/4 pound of sugar. Mix all well together, make a thin puff paste and lay all over the dish. Pour in the ingredients and bake it. To boil an almond pudding. Beat a pound of sweet almonds as small as possible, with 3 spoonfuls of rose water and a gill of sack or white wine, and mix in ½ a pound of fresh butter melted, with 5 yolks of eggs and 2 whites, a quart of cream, 1/4 pound of sugar, ½ a nutmeg grated, 1 spoonful of flour, and 3 spoonfuls of crumbs of white bread. Mix all well together and boil it. It will take ½ an hour boiling. To make a sago pudding. Let ½ a pound of sago be washed well in 3 or 4 hot waters. Then put to it a quart of new milk and let it boil together till it is thick. Stir it carefully, for it is apt to burn. Put in a stick of cinnamon when you set it on the fire. When it is boiled, take it out. Before you pour it out, stir in ½ a pound of fresh butter, then pour it into a pan and beat up 9 eggs with 5 of the whites and 4 spoonfuls of sack. Stir all together and sweeten to your taste. Put in 1/4 pound of currants, clean washed and rubbed, and just plumped in 2 spoonfuls of sack and 2 of rosewater. Mix all well together, stir it well over a slow fire till it is thick. Lay a puff paste over a dish. Pour in the ingredients and bake it. To make a millet pudding. You must get 1/2 pound of millet feed, and after it is washed and picked clean, put to it 1/2 pound of sugar, a whole nutmeg grated, and 3 quarts of milk. When you have mixed all well together, break in 1/2 pound of fresh butter and butter your dish. Pour it in and bake it. To make a carrot pudding. You must take a raw carrot, scrape it very clean and grate it. Take 1/2 pound of the grated carrot and a pound of grated bread, beat up 8 eggs, leave out half the whites, and mix the eggs with 1/2 pint of cream. Then stir in the bread and carrot, 1/2 pound of fresh butter melted, 1/2 pint of sack, and 3 spoonfuls of orange flower water, and nutmeg grated. Sweeten to your palate. Mix all well together, and it is not thin enough, stir in a little new milk or cream. Let it be of a moderate thickness. Lay a puff paste all over the dish and pour in the ingredients. Bake it, and it will take an hour's baking. Or you may boil it, but then you must melt butter and put in white wine and sugar. A second carrot pudding. Get 2 penny loaves, pare off the crust, soak them in a quart of boiling milk, let it stand till it is cold, then grate in 2 or 3 large carrots, then put in 8 eggs well beat, and 3/4 pound of fresh butter melted. Grate in a little nutmeg and sweeten to your taste. Cover your dish with puff paste, pour in the ingredients, and bake it an hour. To make a cowslip pudding. Having got the flowers of a peck of cowslips, cut them and pound them small, with 1/2 pound of Naples biscuits grated, and 3 pints of cream. Boil them a little, then take them off the fire and beat up 16 eggs with a little cream and rosewater. Sweeten to your palate. Mix it all well together, butter a dish and pour it in. Bake it, and when it is enough, throw fine sugar over and serve it up. Or you may make half the quantity. Note: new milk will do in all these puddings when you have no cream. To make a quince, apricot, or white pear plum pudding. Scald your quinces very tender, pare them very thin, scrape off the soft. Mix it with sugar very sweet. Put in a little ginger and a little cinnamon. To a pint of cream you must put 3 or 4 yolks of eggs, and stir it into your quinces till they are of a good thickness. It must be pretty thick. So you may do apricots or white pear plums. Butter your dish, pour it in, and bake it. To make a pearl barley pudding. Get a pound of pearl barley, wash it clean, put to it 3 quarts of new milk and 1/2 pound of double refined sugar, a nutmeg grated. Then put it into a deep pan and bake it with brown bread. Take it out of the oven, beat up 6 eggs. Mix all well together, butter a dish, pour it in, bake it again an hour, and it will be excellent. To make a French barley pudding. Put to a quart of cream 6 eggs well beaten, half the whites, sweeten to your palate, a little orange flower water or rose water, and a pound of melted butter. Then put in 6 handfuls of French barley that has been boiled tender in milk. Butter a dish and put it in. It will take as long baking as a venison pasty. To make an apple pudding. Take 12 large pippins, pare them and take out the cores. Put them into a saucepan with 4 or 5 spoonfuls of water. Boil them till they are soft and thick. Then beat them well. Stir in a pound of loaf sugar, the juice of 3 lemons, the peel of 2 lemons, cut thin and beat fine in a mortar, the yolks of 8 eggs beat. Mix all well together, bake it in a slack oven. When it is near done, throw over a little fine sugar. You may bake it in a puff paste as you do the other puddings. To make an Italian pudding. Take a pint of cream and slice in some French rolls, as much as you think will make it thick enough. Beat 10 eggs fine, grate a nutmeg, butter the bottom of the dish, slice 12 pippins into it, throw some orange peel and sugar over, and half a pint of red wine. Then pour your cream, bread and eggs over it. First lay a puff paste at the bottom of the dish and round the edges, and bake it half an hour. To make a rice pudding. Take 1/4 pound of rice, put it into a saucepan with a quart of new milk, a stick of cinnamon, stir it often to keep it from sticking to the saucepan. When it has boiled thick, pour it into a pan, stir in 1/4 pound of fresh butter and sugar to your palate. Grate in half a nutmeg, add 3 or 4 spoonfuls of rose water and stir all well together. When it is cold, beat up 8 eggs with half the whites. Beat it all well together, butter a dish, pour it in and bake it. You may lay a puff paste first all over the dish. For change, put in a few currants and sweetmeats if you choose it. A second rice pudding. Get half a pound of rice, put to it 3 quarts of milk, stir in half a pound of sugar, grate a small nutmeg in, and break in half a pound of fresh butter. Butter a dish and pour it in and bake it. You may add 1/4 pound of currants for change. If you boil the rice and milk and then stir in the sugar, you may bake it before the fire or in a tin oven. You may add eggs, but it will be good without. A third rice pudding. Take 6 ounces of the flour of rice, put it into a quart of milk and let it boil till it is pretty thick, stirring it all the while. Then pour it into a pan, stir in half a pound of fresh butter and 1/4 pound of sugar. When it is cold, grate in a nutmeg, beat 6 eggs with a spoonful or 2 of sack, beat and stir all well together, lay a thin puff paste on the bottom of your dish, pour it in and bake it. To boil a custard pudding. Take a pint of cream, out of which take 2 or 3 spoonfuls and mix with a spoonful of fine flour. Set the rest to boil. When it is boiled, take it off and stir in the cold cream and flour very well. When it is cool, beat up 5 yolks and 2 whites of eggs, and stir in a little salt and some nutmeg and 2 or 3 spoonfuls of sack. Sweeten to your palate. Butter a wooden bowl and pour it in. Tie a cloth over it and boil it half an hour. When it is enough, untie the cloth, turn the pudding out into your dish, and pour melted butter over it. To make a flour pudding. Take a quart of milk, beat up 8 eggs, but 4 of the whites. Mix them with 1/4 pint of milk, and stir into that 4 large spoonfuls of flour. Beat it well together, boil 6 bitter almonds in 2 spoonfuls of water, pour the water into the eggs, blanch the almonds and beat them fine in a mortar. Then mix them in with half a large nutmeg and a teaspoonful of salt. Then mix in the rest of the milk, flour your cloth well and boil it an hour. Pour melted butter over it and sugar if you like it, thrown all over. Observe always in boiling puddings that the water boils before you put them into the pot, and have ready, when they are boiled, a pan of clean cold water. Just give your pudding one dip in, then untie the cloth, and it will turn out without sticking to the cloth. To make a batter pudding. Take a quart of milk, beat up 6 eggs, half the whites, mix as above, 6 spoonfuls of flour, a teaspoonful of salt, and 1 of beaten ginger. Then mix all together, boil it an hour and a quarter, and pour melted butter over it. You may put in 8 eggs if you have plenty for a change, and half a pound of prunes or currants. To make a batter pudding without eggs. Take a quart of milk, mix 6 spoonfuls of flour with a little of the milk first, a teaspoonful of salt, 2 teaspoonfuls of beaten ginger, and 2 of the tincture of saffron. Then mix all together and boil it an hour. You may add fruit as you think proper. To make a grateful pudding. Take a pound of fine flour and a pound of white bread grated. Take 8 eggs, but half the whites, beat them up and mix with them a pint of new milk, then stir in the bread and flour, a pound of raisins stoned, a pound of currants, half a pound of sugar, a little beaten ginger. Mix all well together and either bake or boil it. It will take 3/4 of an hour baking. Put cream in instead of milk if you have it. It will be an addition to the pudding. To make a bread pudding. Cut off all the crust of a penny white loaf and slice it thin into a quart of milk. Set it over a chafing dish of coals till the bread has soaked up all the milk. Then put in a piece of sweet butter, stir it round, let it stand till cold. Or you may boil your milk and pour over your bread and cover it up close, does full as well. Then take the yolks of 6 eggs, the whites of 3, and beat them up with a little rose water and nutmeg, a little salt and sugar if you choose it. Mix all well together and boil it 1 hour. End of section 24.